Awesome. So, hi guys, welcome to the Rookies Weekly Drills. For those who don't know me, my name is Christina Ryan and I'm a texture and look development artist at Industrial Light and Magic. I currently work in Sydney, Australia. So, yeah, we're going to be going through and reviewing some of your awesome entries this week. So, let me just share my screen. And last week I had some audio issues, so if you can't hear me, just please shout out so I don't go through the whole thing again like I did last time. So yeah, this week the theme was Olympic medals. So we had 2 entries this week, so we'll just pop through them. And once I've gone through them, I plan to go through a few of the robot ones that we did last week. So we did have a bit of a mix-up with the deadline, so really sorry about that, guys. So we have 3 or 4 entries that came after the stream, which I'll go through and provide some feedback. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful to you guys as well. All right, so let's have a look at the first one. All right. So this one was really wicked. I was really pleased with the overall design, and I think they did a very good job at replicating, the actual metal that we still see in the real life. Let's just have a look. So we can see it's got like a glass part on the right-hand side, and it's got some alpha maps as well. And this was the final render. So I think overall, you've got the material properties there, you've got the overall composition and the design. There are just a few things that you could tweak for your next render, and I think that would really strengthen the piece. But I think overall, you've got the backbone of this piece, but a little bit of extra time and will help push this a little bit further. So I guess my first point of feedback would be the actual presentation and the colors that we chose to present this in. I know that the purple and the orange do generally complement each other, but I think the purple might just be taking away from the metal just a little bit. Because the background is quite flat, it's taking away from the photorealism of the metal itself. Personally, if I was going to present it on if I just want a flat background, I don't want to, draw attention to the background at all, I would choose a more neutral color, something a lot more desaturated and probably like a gray or a black, or maybe not black, but like a mid-gray. That would just help sell or get the metal away from that background. If we do want a bit of a colored background, because I can see that, like some of these reference images, maybe we want like the ribbon to be blue or something like that. I would sort of still make it look like it's actually sitting on a table or it's sitting on something realistic, like we can see here, like it's still on top of a table. I think that will just help sell that photorealism a little bit more. The other unfortunate thing with the purple background is that it's losing the definition in this glass piece here. So the only reason I can tell that it's glass is because of the reference images, but because we have this purple background, it is taking on a purple look, which is kind of taking away from what we would see in these reference images here, where it would be like a see-through glass. So something a little bit more neutral will just help along with that. However, that aside, in terms of the actual model and the textures and the alpha maps, I think you've done a great job in matching the reference. The overall shape and where like the positioning and the dimensions is pretty spot on. I'm pretty happy with that. So well done with that. In terms of materials, have another crack at the materials. The brushed metal, like it's a great effect. Just reduce it a little bit more so it's not so strong and pronounced. And with the metal itself, just make sure that the metal slider is on 1 or 100%, because it's losing a little bit of its metallic properties. Now, I don't know whether that's to do with the material itself or whether that's to do with perhaps the lighting environment. It's quite possible that's the case. I highly suggest getting a HDRI or like just an environment background so that the materials have something to reflect against. With like a shiny metal like this, if we start to have like a background, you'll see some reflections. Like you can see in some of these shinier metals, you start to see some reflections from the environment, which will just really help sell that metal. Furthermore, if you were to just make it a little bit shinier, so lower the roughness value of the metal as well, that will really help bring back some of these specular highlights that make it look and feel like a metal. So if we drop the roughness, just reduce this brushing pattern slightly. And I think in terms of the color, we could probably desaturate the color just a little bit too, because I think, I'm going to assume it's a bronze metal, but if you desaturate it just a little bit more, we probably want it to get it closer to looking like this. So just make sure that when you're working, you have your reference up right next to the your work, so you can follow those colors and make it look as photoreal as possible. But overall, just a few tweaks. And I think this will really, help sell this piece. But you really do have the makings of a great piece here. So keep working. I'd be excited to see, if you were to make some updates, what we could see from this. So well done. The next one we have is this one. So I was quite impressed with this one. I think that the sculpting design was really well executed. If we have a look at so this is the reference images. The base color is gold, but it's rendering like bronze. So maybe just check out your lighting, or check out a few of you, like what maps are going into it. Check your lighting. There's probably a few different factors that could be contributing to it. So yeah, with this one, I was really pleased with the sculpt. I think there was we have a model, so we can have a look at the model, see what it looks like. I would have loved to have had a little bit more of a breakdown to see how you produced this map. Did you actually hand sculpt it, or did you use this as like an alpha map to be able to protrude out? So I would have liked to have seen that. I think that would have been really helpful. But overall, it is very effective. You've done a great job, and the materials themselves, they look like metals. They look like metal. The shine feels quite appropriate. I think the bronze and the silver is more successful than the gold. And now I'm not sure whether it could possibly just be the saturation might be a little bit bright, but also because that one's directly lit, it's not coming out as nice as maybe these ones here, because on these guys you have, I think just having that more subtle lighting is really showing off some of these lovely subtle variations you have in the roughness and the color. So we can see, around here we've got some scratches, and over here it sort of looks like it's been banged up a bit and a bit dented. So I think these ones are a little bit more successful than this one, sorry. The background is probably just a little bit too contrasted again. I think it's just a little bit overcooked in terms of the overall finish. We could probably, not go so heavy on the darkness in the background, but I don't mind how it does focus on the gold as well, focus on the metals. So I think the gold metal is just a little bit more desaturated here, whereas up here it's just way too yellow, which I think is not helping it. But no, honestly, great work. I think these are quite successful in terms of the model and the overall design. So in terms of first and second place, so I'm going to give first to this one this week. But to be honest, I was really torn. They were really, really close in terms of, in terms of which one came first place. So I think for the reason I gave this one overall first place was just, we have a look between them. I think the presentation overall sells it, and these materials here do feel a lot closer to photorealism. So, and that's what the brief was. The brief was to get it as photorealistic as possible. So I do feel that these ones look a little bit more photorealistic. However, I do feel that this one has a lot of potential, and if you just push it a little bit further, I think this one could have taken it as well. So well done to the both of you. You've done a great job, and if you have any questions, just shout out. So we're just going to go back through some of the entries from last week now. So I've got another 3 adorable robots that have come through. So I could not give them a little bit of spotlight, because they did do such a great job. So This one was made last week, so let's just have a look. So adorable design, and this is sort of like the overall composition piece. Yeah, I honestly, like, I was not sure about the black and the white, but then the more I looked at it, I was like, no, I really like it. I think you've done a great job. And also this as well, like, it really shows us how much effort you put into this model. Overall design-wise, I think you've done a pretty great job. Now, I don't have a model wireframe, so again, just my word of advice would be to just provide me or provide us with a wireframe or a model so we can comment and help you with feedback on that. Because if we don't have that, it's hard to say whether things are the topology is correct or not. So if you provide us with that, we can provide you with a little bit more advice on that. Everything seems to be holding up. I don't see any major, areas where it's collapsing or anything, so that's good. I like how you've got joints in areas which make sense, so this looks like it's mechanical and it could actually work, so I think that's really fantastic. It's always really hard with robots because you really have to make sure that this thing will actually move. It's design is one thing, but mechanically correct is another thing, which is really good, so well done. In terms of the overall design, I think it's great. I think for some reason I really like these little things up here. I think like this little top bit and the little eerie things, I really like them, and I like how they're a little bit emissive as well. I think the eye is great, and I like his unibrow and his little texture on his mouth. I think that's adorable. I think we possibly could have, in terms of the model, I think the next steps to this would be to add a little bit more construction, like paneling and things like that, to really help sell that this was made, that it would be plausible in the real world. So some sort of paneling that would indicate where the joints are, a few more screws and things like that, because right now it's sort of just one solid piece. So but that's just like another layer, another step that you can continue to add. See, like some of these lines here, you're starting to add some of that paneling detail. But if you were to add a few more panels around here and maybe even a few more interesting shapes to the silhouette. So right now it's sort of just like a plain cube. You can certainly start to look at some reference and adding a few more interesting shapes around here just to get it looking a little bit more interesting. And yeah, like the arms, you've got, a few bevels and things like that, which really helps sell it. So nice one. In terms of the materials, the secondary details is a little bit too much. So just try and focus these details in areas where they make sense. So rather than cover the whole body, I would say, maybe just have it I like how it's sort of around here, like it's kind of come out of this vent, but perhaps some of these drips could be reserved. Maybe they could just be underneath the vent, so it's been dripping, like oil's been leaking out from underneath there, around the crevices, so anywhere where oil and stuff could possibly leak out of the cracks. That's sort of where you would see those oil marks and things like that. You wouldn't normally see it all over the robot. So just focus the leaky details to areas where they make sense. And some of the stripping could probably be worn away a little bit as well. So we want areas where the eye can rest. So if we were to sort of zoom out from this and squint our eyes right now, the whole thing is very samey, the details are everywhere or over the yellow. But if we could have larger chunks of areas which are more cleaner, and then larger chunks which are a little bit dirtier, like a large frequency sort of level, that would just really help sell that. And also, if we have a look at the wheels themselves, they are perfectly clean. So I imagine that something that's dirty would have some sort of wear and tear on the tires as well. So when you do that wear and tear, and I think that would just be that's because the base material is spot on, so well done. It looks like rubber. Just add the wear sort of on around the edges where the tire would naturally move along the ground. It just has to be a lighter color with a slightly higher roughness. Doesn't have to be crazy, it can be quite subtle, but just something that will really help sell the idea that this thing is moving. And I think that will just really help it along. Because even though when we look at the final, let's have a look, even when we look at the final image, I think it would really benefit from having a little bit of that wear along the tires as well. And let's have another look. Yeah, and then some of this bump, if we're going to be rendering up this close, some of this like edge wear and some of this bump detail, just soften that out a little bit. Either get yourself some more texture resolution, so more UV space, or just reduce the height of the bump, because it's too strong coming out along here, and it's making it look a little bit low res. So I'm just getting the feeling that it needs to be a bit less strong and a bit sharper. And whether or not that's just a case of sharpening the map or sharpening the textile density, so giving yourself more textile density, that could also help it as well. But nice work, well done. Yeah. Perhaps this could maybe glow as well. That would be cool. All right. So next up we have this one. So a cute little model. It almost looks like a little teacup. So we'll go through it. So great, absolutely great start. You should be really happy with how you've progressed. You've got a bunch of different materials. You started blocking out, like you've got your, it makes sense. You have metal on the base, and then you've added paints on top of that. The paint sort of chipped away. We have rubber, and we have a few like interesting materials and shapes like that. This looks kind of cool. So my advice for this one would be to just get a reference image up and try and focus your secondary details and areas, again, where they make a little bit of sense. So naturally, these layers, they don't just accumulate everywhere all over the body. They tend to accumulate in areas like, that they would naturally occur in real life. So get your observation skills, practice your observation skills, get your reference images together, because I don't know if we have any reference images with this one. So if we get some reference images together, we'd probably find that, perhaps some of these grungy details are a little bit too strong and they don't quite make sense to be there. We want to make sure that we're always texturing to reference, because rather than just texturing something that looks cool. So for example, this crack detail at the back, first of all, I think it looks like it's coming out of the model instead of going into the model. So I would say that, if something's cracked, it would be indented inwards. And some of these large, bump details, again, are just quite strong and a little bit jarring to what we're trying to achieve. So like this one around here, again, just a little bit too strong. So make these details a lot smaller and a lot finer. And some of these like patchy details with the paint, I would maybe paint it a little, add a little bit more red and less metal. That'd probably help it along. And with the metal itself, you could probably like if you do have any metal showing through, you could probably sharpen it a little bit to make it appear a lot more like metal, because right now it's sort of way too rough, so it's kind of clashing. And yeah, keep working on some of these other materials and the tires as well. In terms of the shape, the tire could probably be a little bit more like, it's a little bit too spherical, if that makes sense. So it's too pointy at the top and bottom around here. So you probably, if you look at a tire, you probably want it to be a little bit more square. So it's got more surface area against the ground. That will just help that. And also, once you've done that, check out your UV space as well. I think if you were to provide yourself a little bit more UV space, you would have more textile density to work with, and some of these details wouldn't appear so blurry and low frequency. So that would just help that one out a little bit. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of advice to keep working. But well done. It's a great start, and I think if you just keep pushing that bit further, I think you'll have something quite nice. One more thing, you could probably add a few more edge loops, because it's appearing a little bit like, what's the word? Low poly. Oh my god, it's appearing a little bit low poly. So don't be afraid to use your edge loops. Even like game engines now can really handle the high poly. So give yourself some more edge loops to work with. Nice one. And this is the last one we have today. So really adorable design. I was really happy with this one. So let's have a look through your reference images. So again, we can sort of see the style that you were going for. I'm going to say it's like sort of this plasticky graphic sort of style. We got some like little little drawings, which was really cute as well. And a few like work in progresses. So in terms of breakdown, like great work. I'm really happy with that. The model is really clean. It's really smooth. I would have liked to have seen a proper wireframe. However, I can see that it's like there's no edges that are collapsing. There's no like that doesn't appear to have bad topology. It's responding and shading quite accurately. But yeah, topology would just help me out a little bit further. But I love some of these like little subtle details. And this is what I was talking about previously, is just adding evidence of construction. It really helps sell it, and just adding that little bit of extra detail is really, really nice. So in having a look at the reference now, I can see that what you're going for is sort of more of like a really glossy, colorful graphic design. So if I have a look at this, for example, this is just like a plasticky sort of covering. Now, one thing I did notice is that your material does feel quite metallic, so which is not necessarily a bad thing. So if I actually quite like the metallic look, so just as long as we understand that that metallic look is not what we see in these references here. So these are like a plastic covering. The only one that's somewhat metallic would be this one here, the metallic guy. But all these ones have a really like a white, shiny, glossy, plasticky look along the outside, whereas yours does have that colored speck, which makes it look metallic, which is totally fine. To be honest, I actually quite like it. So if that's the direction you want to head down, that's great. I would see if you can find a bit more reference images that shows that colored metal. That will just help you get a little bit, it will just help you texture and design your piece a little bit more, because sometimes, like if you look at these references, they're not quite representative of the material you're trying to portray, so you might add details that don't quite make sense. But if you can find yourself some references, that would be really good for that particular type of material. I think you've got a great foundation. I think next, I would just say keep adding your details, right? So I would add a little bit more evidence of construction, maybe some paneling in places, and then work on the material properties themselves. So like right now, I can see we only have flat values and flat colors. So what we want to be doing next to really help sell the photorealism of this, and even if this is more of a stylized asset, you can still add details that that make you think about the material a bit more, and it can still be quite stylized and still have a bit of texture to it. So this sort of conveyor belt material, maybe you could get a bump map on there that suggests that it is a fabric or a plastic or something with a little bit of wear around the edges. A few really subtle variations in the roughness map. It doesn't have to be much. It can be really, really subtle, but just enough to break the specular highlight a little bit and add a little bit of interest. Even like these, I mean, a lot of these are like, for example, this one bottom left, I think that's a render actually, but a lot of like the product video, the product images are going to be quite perfect because they want to sell the product clean. But if we were to look at something a little bit more realistic, even this singer, I think this is a great example that even though it's quite clean, we can still see some really subtle nicks and scratches, like around the base. We have a few dents. We have some like smudgy textures around there. They're really only subtle. From a distance, if you squint your eyes, you can barely see them, but it's just enough to give a bit of interest. And that will really help sell it. We don't have to go this dirty to add interest. It can definitely be in between. And I think this is a great example of that. And I think that's where that looks. See, this one looks like a 3D render because it's so perfect. Whereas this one's got a little bit more life into it. So if we added a little bit of life into those secondary maps, we could add a few more nuts and bolts, a few panels that will help it along. And like, for example, this specular highlight along the face, it's quite jarring because it is just so perfect. It would be nice if we were to add some subtle, maybe some fingerprints or maybe not fingerprints, but just something that tells that it's not perfectly clean. That will really help that along. Other than that, I think it's a great, absolutely fantastic little piece, and I can't wait to see it. You know, if you were to take a step further, pop it in the Discord channel and let us know. In terms of like the place winnings from last week, I'm still really happy with our robot penguin and how that one took first place. So I won't be making, you know, any alterations or changes to places, but hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of help and a little bit of assistance with, or provide you with some feedback. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you've got any projects, or if you want a little bit of help with anything, just pop it in the Discord channel. We're happy to help, and we want to see you guys succeed. So that's the most important thing. So yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week for bubblegum.